The auctioneer's hammer struck the worn block with a sickening thud, echoing the finality of a death sentence. "Sold to the gentleman in the black coat for $1 silver." Elara flinched, the coarse hemp rope chafing her delicate wrists. But she refused to drop her gaze from the vast, indifferent expanse of the Monarch Mesa on the horizon. They had stripped her bare. The family orchard, her father's good name, even the simple copper bracelet her mother had given her. She wouldn't grant them the satisfaction of seeing her spirit break. $1. That was the exchange rate for 20 years of her life in this pitiless market. The rabble of bidders drifted away like shadows at dawn, their harsh laughter swallowed by the dusty air of Red Rock Crossing. The clerk, a thin man with a cruel smile, seized her arm, his grip bruising. "Move along, chattel. Your master is waiting." Elara stumbled down the wooden platform, the once fine linen of her dress now a tattered canvas of misery. She expected another face contorted by greed, another set of eyes that promised only degradation. Instead, she stopped short, staring up at the figure before her. He was imposing, built like a fortress against the wind, with iron-gray hair visible beneath the brim of a wide, dust-caked hat. His eyes, the color of a stormy sea, held no lust or mockery, but a profound stillness, a quiet contemplation that felt strangely like pity. "Ma'am," he said, the word a deep rumble, and he offered a slight, respectful nod. There was no possessiveness in the gesture. The clerk shoved the rope into the stranger's hand. "She's all yours, Cartwright. Enjoy your pitiful investment." The man, a rancher clearly, judging by the scent of pine and horse leather that clung to him, ignored the jibe. He studied Elara's face, his scrutiny unnerving. "What name do you answer to?" he asked. The question was a shock. Most had simply referred to her as the item. "Elara." "I am Ben Cartwright." He paused, his gaze sweeping over the gauntness of her cheeks. "Are you hungry, Elara?" "Truly?" The unexpected concern nearly shattered her composure. She hadn't been asked about her needs in months. She managed a silent, shaky nod. Ben gestured toward a sturdy buckboard hitched to two well-muscled bay horses. "We have a significant distance to cover. We ought to get on our way. The road west." As they walked away from the auction site, Elara heard the low, venomous murmurs from the remaining townsfolk. A fool. Thrown away. Money. Wasting good livestock. But beneath the scorn was a thread of resentment, as if Ben had spoiled their dark spectacle. The wagon rolled relentlessly toward the west, the afternoon sun casting long, skeletal shadows across the scrubland. Ben had given her a clean wool shawl and half a loaf of bread with thick-cut smoked venison, a feast compared to the scraps she'd subsisted on. The question that had burned a hole in her mind finally broke the quiet. "Why?" she asked, her voice raspy. Ben kept his gaze fixed on the endless trail. "Why what exactly? Why did you bid at all?" The others were laughing, turning away. "You could have just left me." She couldn't voice the horrible fate of an unsold woman in such a place. "It went against my grain," he responded, his tone flat. His simplistic answer infuriated her. No man in this territory spent money, even a single dollar, without an expectation of return. "What is it you truly want from me?" This time, Ben turned his head, his sea-gray eyes meeting hers. She saw a flicker of something raw in his expression, a deep-seated grief perhaps, or a burden he carried alone. "I want you to have a genuine choice," he stated. "When we reach my spread, the Ponderosa, you can elect to work there for fair wages and a respectable room, or I will furnish you with funds and passage to whatever place you wish to go. It will be your decision, and yours alone." Elara stared at him incredulous. You're not being truthful. I am, ma'am. No one does that. No one purchases a human being only to grant them their freedom. Ben was silent for a long moment, the only sound the rhythmic squeak of the wagon wheels. When he finally spoke, his voice was heavy, weighted with history. My younger sister Lillian was traded just like this, a terrible winter ago. The drought took our farm, and the agents took everything else. I was too young, too broke to stand against them. All I could do was watch what became of her. He shifted the reins, his knuckles white against the dark leather. I've been searching for her ghost ever since. A palpable sorrow settled between them. Ilara had trained herself to reject any notion of good faith, for it always proved to be bait. Yet, the anguish in Ben's voice, the careful boundary he maintained, made her want desperately to believe. "Did you ever find her?" Ilara asked softly. "No," he said, his jaw tightening. "She was moved quickly by the man who bought her." The trail went cold almost immediately. The gathering storm, a puff of dust materialized on the western horizon, small at first, but rapidly growing into a cloud. Ben saw it the instant she did, and his entire posture tensed. "Did anyone in town know you intended to bid today?" Ilara asked, a knot forming in her stomach. "Not a soul," Ben replied, reaching beneath the seat for a repeating rifle. "But bad news, and strange acts. They travel on the fastest winds." The dust cloud was unmistakably closing the distance, and fast. The drumming of hooves now reached them. 5, maybe 6 riders, pushing their mounts hard across the flatlands. Ben whipped the team, but a heavy wagon was no match for driven horsemen. "Get down in the wagon bed," Ben ordered, his voice suddenly sharp. "Wrap yourself in that blanket. Stay low." "What's happening?" "A reckoning," he muttered. He checked the rifle, then pulled a small silver-plated derringer from his vest, pressing it into Ilara's hand. "Do you know how to operate this?" She nodded. Her father, a simple farmer, had taught her to shoot, though she'd only ever imagined defending their livestock from coyotes. Now the predators wore human faces. The riders cut them off just as Ben guided the wagon toward a protective cluster of granite boulders. Ilara recognized the sneering faces, men who had stood at the auction, reveling in her humiliation. Their leader was Jedediah Coe, a notorious land baron whose reputation for cruelty was well-deserved. "Afternoon, Cartwright," Coe drawled, reining in his black stallion 20 feet away. His men fanned out, their hands resting suggestively near holstered pistols. "Heard you made a peculiar acquisition today." "A legitimate purchase," Ben stated, his voice steady. "The documents are in order." Coe's smile was chilling. "That's where the complication lies. A few of the fellows here believe you've misunderstood the terms of that sale. Word is you paid good money for property you plan to release. It makes the rest of us appear foolish, like we don't grasp the fundamental nature of ownership." Ilara's breath hitched. This was not about money or legality. It was about the brutal scaffolding of their society, designed to keep women like her powerless. "What I choose to do with my own belongings is my sole concern," Ben countered, his rifle held loosely, unthreateningly, but ready. "See, that's where your thinking is flawed," Coe said, dismounting with deliberate slowness. "Your actions bleed into the actions of us all. It creates a poor precedent. Other women might begin to entertain notions of self-respect, and that is a crop we cannot afford to harvest." Ben's voice dropped to a low, dangerous growl. "Ride away, Coe. This does not involve you." "But it does," Coe insisted, moving a step closer. "I had designs on her myself. Intended to scoop her up when the price hit rock bottom, but then you had to play the noble savior." Ilara gripped the small derringer. 2 shots, 6 men. The odds were impossible. "Last chance, Ben," Coe said, his hand sliding toward his weapon. "Hand her over, and we'll forget your little charitable venture. Refuse, and, he shrugged, well, dead men don't need ranch hands. Time seemed to solidify. Elara could hear the frantic rhythm of her own heart, the acrid smell of sweat and gun oil. But instead of terror, a cold, clear fury began to bloom in her chest. I have something to say. The words were an audible declaration. Elara stood up in the wagon bed, dropping the shawl. 6 pairs of eyes locked onto her, but for the first time in months, she did not feel like a trapped animal. You want to know my value? She held the derringer up, not pointing it, but ensuring every man saw the deadly gleam of the metal. More than a single dollar, more than any price you had planned to offer. Ko forced a laugh, but it was thin, brittle. The little wren has talons. I like that. You are not listening. Elara's voice cut through his amusement like a knife. She reached into the lining of her torn dress and pulled out the copper bracelet, its surface dulled with age, but its sentiment bright. It caught the late sun, throwing a soft bronze gleam. My mother gave me this, told me it carried a blessing. She looked directly at Ben. I thought it was merely superstition, but I think I understand it now. Ben met her gaze, and in that moment, she felt a profound connection, not of buyer and sold, but of 2 souls recognizing the fight for dignity. This man, Elara continued, gesturing toward Ben, paid your price for me. But he was the only one who asked my name, the only one who offered me nourishment, the only one who gave me a choice. She slipped the copper onto her wrist. So here is my choice. She raised the derringer, this time aligning the sights with clear, deliberate intent. Any man who intends to take me from him will have to answer to my mother. And my mother does not care for the sight of fresh blood on her son's copper. A heavier silence descended. Ko and his men exchanged uneasy glances. They had come for sport and property, not a gunfight with a woman who had nothing left to lose. You'd spill blood for him? Ko finally asked, incredulous. A stranger who purchased you like cheap grain? No, Elara said quietly, her voice ringing with steel. I would spill blood for me, for the right to choose my own path. Ben subtly shifted his stance, his rifle still ready, but his tension easing. She has spoken her choice, Ko, just as I spoke mine. And what choice was that, Ben? The choice to believe that some things are beyond the calculation of coin. The sound of new riders shattered the standoff. Territorial rangers. A misunderstanding, Ranger, Ko quickly lied. I heard reports of interference with illegal sale. That's robbery. The head ranger was flint-eyed. Is this woman legally obtained? The ranger asked Ben. Yes, sir. And is she free to leave? Ben glanced at Elara. Her choice. Then the discussion is over. The ranger stared down Ko. The gang retreated, threats muttered. This isn't forgotten, Cartwright, Ko shouted. It is finished, Elara stated, loud and clear. When the dust settled, Ben looked at her. You are still free to go. Elara traced her bracelet, then looked at the man who gave her a choice. I could, but I'd like to see those fair wages on your ranch. Ben smiled. It's honest work. The food is decent. Sounds like a kingdom. As they rode west, hope settled in Elara, the quiet, enduring kind. Years later, running her own corner of the Ponderosa with Ben, her partner in life and labor, she would often recall that afternoon. She would remember how the weight of her mother's copper had felt like a shield, and how her decision to demand respect had irrevocably changed her fate. Her worth, she knew then, could never be quantified in coins or dollars, but only in the courage to insist upon her own dignity. The sun dipped below the Monarch Mesa, painting the western sky in hues of red and vibrant gold, the indelible colors of a new beginning.